Hey guys, it's great to be live with you again. Merry Christmas and happy holidays and happy New Year. Okay, I want to catch you guys up on the issue in Arizona. So many things developing there. The Carrie Lake versus Katie Hobbs lawsuit, which the judge struck down ultimately all 10 counts that Carrie was going for. But new surveillance video has emerged showing that one of the key men testifying in that short 2 days of testimony appeared to be getting coached by attorneys in between the 2 days of questioning. Was the defense coaching Robert Scott Jarrett? We're going to look at the video and look at why his testimony completely contradicted itself in between day one and day two of testimony in regards to what the heck happened with all of those glitches on election day. Very strange stuff. Now, I also want to get you guys up to date on the latest news today regarding uh, a very close race in Arizona. It was the Republican candidate for attorney general who just lost again after the recount today. Get this, he lost by only 280 votes after the recount. So the Arizona's going to now have a Democratic attorney general. She initially, Chris Mays is her name. She beat him by 511 votes, and is now going to ultimately beat him by 280 votes. Now, talk about razor thin. Not so good to have a Democrat attorney general if you care about crime in the state, but I guess that's going to be the future for Arizona. Now, Hamadeh responded with a statement saying this is a battle fighting for the transparency of Arizona elections, and we continue to uncover significant issues within our flawed systems, including over 4,000 provisional ballots that remain uncounted. If that is true, why on earth are they calling this race against Hamadeh? This is Hamadeh, by the way. There he is, Abe Hamadeh, who lost by 280 votes when there's still 4,000 votes to be counted. And here's the update from AZ Central. Carrie Lake appeals her loss in election lawsuit. Judge's order to pay rival $33,000 in fees. So she's appealing all of that. And I am going to catch you guys up to date on this latest very strange situation with the elections director who was questioned in the 2-day testimony before the judge made his ruling. We're going to break down how it appears he committed perjury. Okay, before we jump into that, shout out to the sponsor of my coverage. Households across the U.S. are expected to face a cold and unaffordable winter this year as energy prices continue to skyrocket. One new study reveals energy and electricity costs are rising 20% every year at best. At worst, many residents can expect to start paying as much as 43% more than their current bills. But you can help avoid this ripoff price with this amazing power saving device that slashes power bills by making the energy in your home more efficient. This small device that plugs into the wall reduces dirty electricity in homes. It uses a patented technology to provide homes with a smooth, stable electrical current. This leads to an increase in efficiency, reduction in dirty electricity, less wasted power, and more importantly, lower energy bills every month. Don't wait. Get it now for 50% off by going to the link down below, savepowerbills.com. That is savepowerbills.com, link in description, or simply click that link. The best part is that you have 60 days to change your mind if you aren't fully satisfied. So order now and thank me later. Checking you out. Can you hear me okay? Um, See your comments. Carrie Lake won. A lot of people feel that way. It is still astounding that the woman who hid in her basement and ran from reporters and even getting softball questions on CNN and MSNBC, Katie Hobbs couldn't answer a question from her best friends at CNN. How did she win when Carrie Lake was rocking and rolling in every interview? Okay, so we've got the Gateway Pundit uncovering some new video of the elections director, Robert Scott Jarrett, exclusive. Maricopa County Elections Director Scott Jarrett, coached by attorneys at MTech after day one of Kari Lake's trial. He changed his testimony the next day. The Gateway pundit has obtained footage of a meeting in the Maricopa County tabulation room between Maricopa County Elections Director Scott Jarrett and the defendant's attorneys after day one of Lake versus Hobbs election trial. Why is he getting coached by Katie Hobbs' attorneys after day 1 of 2 of the election trial? Now, here's a screenshot from the surveillance video, and you can see this is allegedly Robert Scott Jarrett, who was questioned. Where I'm going to play sound bites from him, leaning over with his head in his hands, while sitting across from Katie Hobbs' attorneys. Here's the actual surveillance video. So just Gateway Pundit breaks down where they got this. The footage of the nearly 3-hour meeting was obtained from the Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Center live cameras on the recorder's webpage. So they have live cameras of these rooms so anyone can go and see these people meeting. Attorney Joseph LaRue appears to be sitting across from Scott Jarrett and coaching him on what to say when called to the stand the next day. It is unclear who the other individuals are. So here it is. Now they're right in this. They are in this far corner. If you can see the upper left corner meeting, and then they zoom in here. There it is. So he is meeting with them here, wiping his brow. So if this is true, that he met with Katie Hobbs' attorneys in between day 1 and day 2 of testimony, perhaps that could help connect the dots as to why Robert Scott Jarrett changed his testimony so much. He must, from all appearances, he committed perjury in court, because day 1 and day 2 of testimony were completely different stories, and I'm going to break that down for you. Okay, so let me pause this video and we can get into how he contradicted himself on some very key issues, being the shrink to fit issue with the ballots. I'm going to look at some transcripts from day 1 of testimony. Actually, let's show you guys his LinkedIn here. This is the man in question. Scott Jarrett, Director of Elections, Election Day, and Emergency Voting at Maricopa County. Okay, let's look at some transcript from testimony. So the prosecution, or I'm sorry, the plaintiffs in this case, Kari Lake's team, questions him and say, they said, how are those test ballots configured in terms of the size of the ballot? So this is day 1 of testimony before that meeting was recorded, right? And he answers, they were the exact same size of the ballot that were used in the general election. Attorney asks, what size was that, sir? He says, 20-inch ballot. The attorney says, what would happen if a ballot was printed out of a ballot on demand printer at the vote center if it was printed with a 19-inch image on a 20-inch paper and run through the tabulator? Jarrett responds, you need to be more specific with your question. Let's look at another screenshot from testimony. Jarrett says, we do not specifically test for that, for the missizing and shrink to fit. They don't test for that, he says, because in this specific election, because none of the ballots on our ballot on demand printers had a 19-inch ballot, they all had a 20-inch ballot. So I can answer a question about our testing related to the 20-inch ballot that was installed on all our ballot on demand printers. So the attorney says, if a 19-inch image was installed, if a 19-inch ballot image was printed out on a ballot on demand printer and run through the tabulation that was configured for the 2022 general election, would that tabulator accept that ballot or reject it? So if the image of who you're voting for shrank to fit the paper, would the tabulator accept a different size ballot? The attorney the defense attorney for Katie Hobbs objects. Objection, Your Honor. First, this calls for speculation. Okay, so which, if he knows how tabulators work, that would not be speculation. So again, this is the Kari Lake attorneys trying to confirm that, trying to figure out who created the shrink to fit problem that was discovered. Now, up until day one of testimony, nobody knew shrink to fit was an issue until the Kari Lake team brought it out in court and asked Mr. Jarrett about it for the first time. And he's acting really ignorant here, saying, no, that's not an issue. We don't even test for that because all of our printers are set to 20-inch. So there would never be a 19-inch. Here's the thing. If you vote on the screen and then who you voted for prints out to one size, it needs to be the size that the tabulator will accept when you bring it over to the tabulator, feed it in for counting. Kari Lake's team somehow discovered that there was an issue of shrink to fit where it actually would print out at a smaller size that was not configured in alignment with the tabulator. So the tabulator would not accept it. And that was an issue on election day that Kari Lake's team discovered and brought to this election director in testimony, saying what's going on here. And he's acting really ignorant and acting like that wasn't an issue. Let's look at another part of the transcript from day one of testimony. The witness, that's Mr. Jarrett. So I'm willing to say that I don't know specifically for this 2020 election. I know based on my historical, or the 2022 election, I know based on my historical knowledge, the timing marks on the ballot matter, and it would need a 20-inch ballot to run through that tabulation equipment. But we did not specifically test a 19-inch ballot through the 2022 tabulation equipment because there was no 19-inch ballot images installed on ballot on demand printers. There you go. They didn't test for this problem because there was no problem to be seen. And then I'm going to play what he actually said for day two of testimony. Totally different. But let me show you this as well. He also said, you recall that, so the Kari Lake attorneys say, you recall that there were issues with ballots being rejected on November 8th in the election day, correct? And Mr. Jarrett says, I don't recall issues with ballots being rejected. So it's like, you don't? Because even your own boss, Mr. Bill Gates, was talking about what an issue there was. Everyone agreed on election day that Maricopa County, Arizona was having major issues with ballots being rejected. I'm looking at your comments. Okay, so now let me play for you how Mr. Jarrett's testimony completely changed the next day. It was only 2 days of testimony allowed. They had to cram in as much as they could. Was that surveillance video, just highlighted by the Gateway Pundit, a part of why his testimony magically changed? Let's take a look. Suddenly, he knows all about the shrink to fit or fit to print issue. Here he is on day two of testimony.
What I recall from yesterday's questioning was that there was a 19-inch definition, which that did not occur, ballot definition.
So if your testimony reflects my question, or strike that, if the back and forth between our question and answer shows me asking you specifically about a 19-inch ballot image being printed on a 20-inch piece of paper, you are now saying that you interpreted that as a ballot definition issue?
Yes, that's correct.
And you wouldn't think it would be relevant, even in that circumstance, to say, hey, we learned about this fit to print issue. Did you know about the fit? When did you learn about this fit to print issue?
When we started doing the audit reconciliation of those door 3 ballots, we identified some of those ballots had then a fit to paper issue.
And when was that?
I don't remember the exact dates, but a few days after Election Day.
And who told you about that?
Our ballot tabulation team and our audit review team that was then doing the inspection of the door 3 ballots.
So, and I believe your testimony was that you discovered this only in 3 vote center locations, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So did you look at the other locations to see if this so-called fit to print issue arose at other locations?
We looked at all the door 3 misread ballots that were in the secure door 3, and we didn't identify any of those that a fit to paper issue.
Fit to paper issue. So if evidence showed up that there was a 19-inch ballot imprinted on a 20-inch piece of paper out of the Anthem location, that's not one of the locations that you identified, is it?
I did not identify that from Anthem.
So suddenly he's admitting that, just a few short days after Election Day, we were aware of a shrink to fit or fit to print issue where definitely what you were talking about yesterday. Yes, that was true. So what the heck changed between day 1 and day 2? And he goes on to explain, well, just because there was a shrink to fit issue, it was nothing malicious. It was part of the workers frantically trying to solve another glitch that caused a new glitch, he's saying. Here he goes.
When did this so-called adjustment to the printer settings happen on Election Day that gave rise to this fit to print issue?
I don't have the specific time, but it was during the course of Election Day.
And was this fit to print issue, how did those settings get changed? Was it at the direction of somebody from Maricopa or just somebody on their own doing it?
It was not at the direction of anyone from Maricopa County.
So was the change in the settings in response to tabulator issues?
So we believe at least at one of the sites, one of the technicians was attempting the troubleshoot and then made that change.
So if other sites, if the tabulator issues arose immediately before any technician made any changes to the print settings, then your theory of a fit to print issue would not be correct. Yes?
No, I disagree.
So when would the changes to the printer settings have been made?
So the reason I know it didn't occur prior is because during our test prints, prior to Election Day, there was no identified fit to paper setting issue.
And when was that?
We do that during when we're setting up each voting location. We run test prints on all of the printers.
And how would you know that it didn't arise?
It was never reported back through our chain of custody from the technicians to up to me, which they would have reported that to me.
Why do you think they would have reported it to you?
Because I meet with the team routinely and throughout the day, and I've even asked them subsequently, and they've said that they never identified it during any of the setups.
So did you have a meeting with all these technicians and ask them this question?
I had a meeting with our command center teams.
Were all the technicians asked about this fit to print issue?
I don't know if all the technicians were.
Is there any documentation of any inquiry about this fit to print issue?
I don't know if there's any documentation.
So,
yeah. So now he's really contradicting. And he also said that there were only 3 locations he noted. Now, Carrie Lake's team said that out of 6 locations that their people randomly inspected, shrink to fit was an issue in all 6 randomly inspected locations. Carrie Lake's team went on to say that the defense has been constantly downplaying not just the defense, but the county has been constantly downplaying this. After on Election Day, they said, oh yeah, we're having major glitches. Since then, they've downplayed it and said, oh, it was, a couple little hiccups, but all was well. So troubleshooting the glitch. Now, he said that they checked for this glitch right before setting up the machines, but yesterday, day one of testimony, he said they didn't check for this kind of glitch because that kind of glitch was not even, something that could happen because everything was set to 20-inch. So why is he completely contradicting himself between day 1 and 2 of testimony? Let's look at Mr. Robert Scott Jarrett continuing to be questioned by Kari Lake's team. Not only is he well aware of the shrink to print issue in day 2, he even has documentation of it. Why was none of this brought up on day 1?
So you said you performed a root cause analysis to determine how these problems arose on election day?
We're in the process of performing a root cause analysis.
And as part of that root cause analysis, you determined that there was this fit to print issue in 3 locations, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any documentation preceding yesterday's testimony that identifies this issue?
As part of, yes, there is some documentation.
What documentation?
So some of our audit reconciliation forms that identified the 3 locations.
And what do those audit reconciliation forms show?
They show the number of check-ins from voting locations. They show the number of door 3 ballots, and then notes based off our audit reconciliation.
Okay. Does it say fit to print issue was the cause, or words to that effect on those forms?
It actually is using the term shrink to fit, not fit to
shrink to fit. Shrink to fit. And was that determined to be the cause, or is that was that an assumption as a possibility?
It was determined to be the cause for those 3 locations, for the ones that wouldn't be read at the voting location and then be read at central count.
So Kari Lake's attorneys are like, so all this, you're going in depth, buddy, and you didn't mention any of this yesterday.
And again, you did not mention this in your testimony yesterday, did you?
I did not.
Did you publish anywhere that there was this shrink to fit issue after the election?
We've not.
So you didn't tell the public, hey, we've discovered. I mean, you're performing a root cause analysis and you find out that there was this shrink to fit issue that gave rise to problems in the tabulators, and you did not inform the public about this.
We're still in the process of our root cause analysis.
Wow. Well, I look forward to seeing what all they find out when they're done with this root cause analysis, as we are now going on 2 months since Election Day. So Kari Lake's attorneys finish up the questioning, and then Katie Hobbs' attorneys come in and kind of be like coo him, like, yes, all is well, isn't it? Yeah, let's tie up some loose ends and say something about how you're not perjuring yourself, Mr. Jarrett. All right, here.
Is it your testimony that the printer set changes that gave rise to the so-called shrink to fit issue, was that done on Election Day?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
I have just a couple of questions. So Scott, to be clear, the question that you were asked yesterday was whether or not there was a 19-inch definition in the election management system. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Scott, was that your understanding of the question that was being asked of you?
Yes, that was my understanding.
And that was true yesterday, and it's true today. Is that right?
That's correct.
There were no 19-inch definitions in the election management system.
That's correct.
So this fit to print issue that we're talking about, has this ever happened before in any previous elections?
Yes, it has.
When did it happen before?
So it happened in the August 2020 primary election, the November 2020 general election, and the August 2022 primary election. So
is it safe to say that this, falls into the category of, an election day hiccup, and it's related to a human error on that day trying to resolve a problem related to the printers? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you testified before the total number of ballots that were impacted by this fit to print issue. What was that total number?
It was just and I don't have that exact count. It was just under 1,300.
Okay. And I believe you testified before, but what's the process then for once those are identified so that those ballots can get tabulated?
So then those would go to a bipartisan duplication board, and then they together would make determinations on voter intent for each contest on the ballot. Those would then get duplicated. So that ballot would be printed, and that ballot would then be run through a central count tabulator to be counted and then reported.
And that bipartisan adjudication board process, is that observed?
That is by political parties.
Okay. And you testified that there were a few, thus far in the root cause analysis, there have been a few different issues that have been identified that caused some ballots to be placed into door 3. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And is the root cause analysis completed?
No, it's not.
Have you presented it publicly to the Board of Supervisors yet?
We have not.
Yeah. So basically, she was starting out saying, basically, what you meant, Mr. What's his name again? I've got the other guy's name. Mr. Scott Jarrett, Robert Scott Jarrett. What you meant is that you guys didn't ahead of time purposely set the settings to 19-inch. It was something that switched over day of in the middle of the day. And he's like, exactly, that's what I meant. And she's like, okay, it was only like 1,300 ballots, and then those ballots did eventually get counted, so all is well. Now, Carrie Lake's people are saying no. Out of 6 different polling places we checked, shrink to fit was an issue in all of those, and you're only admitting to 3, so we don't believe you. So I really want to hear, I want to see more evidence of what Carrie Lake's team has, and I just wonder why we didn't see that cold hard evidence in this 2 days of testimony from Carrie Lake's team. They needed to drive home more that they had people who inspected 6 locations and that shrink to fit was at each of those locations. Why can't we see documentation of that? Why didn't Carrie Lake's team present that documentation? But it was all just like hearsay. It's him saying this is true, Carrie Lake's team saying this is true, and we're not seeing hard evidence of anything, just a lot of people talking about what they believe to be true. And so then they're saying that if a ballot was rejected because it shrank to fit, then it had to be slid into box 3 instead. And then box 3 gets taken off to a bipartisan board for review and adjudication, I guess. Meaning that there's a Democrat and Republican looking at what's really happening, as far as making sure that whatever that voter intended goes all the way through to count as a vote. But how easy is it to compromise this bipartisan group of individuals looking at this? Because I think it would be pretty easy for someone to go up and pose as a Republican when they're really Democrat. I mean, it seems like Arizona has a lot of people posing as Republican while being Democrat. And the county recorder, Stephen Richer, is one of those people. He founded a PAC, an anti-MAGA PAC, and he's a Republican. And his biggest donor for his PAC was someone who donates immensely to Democrats, including Katie Hobbs. And he calls himself a Republican. And he's running this election, yet he's anti-Carrie Lake. How is this something that a system that we can trust to be fair whatsoever? Oh yeah, I was gonna. So I saw one of your comments saying, "Okay, the judge thought nothing was fishy about this, huh?" Yeah. Here's the thing. So ultimately, the judge struck down all 10 of Carrie Lake's counts, and the AZ Central was reporting Judge Thompson ruled that Lake failed to provide clear and convincing evidence that there were intentional moves to change ballot printing settings and to disrupt the chain of custody for ballots in Maricopa County. The key argument that Lake and her attorneys made during the in court during the trial. So that's the thing. They were arguing that this was like a premeditated situation. Someone went in and, decided we are going to hijack the system so Carrie Lake's votes won't go through. If if that's your argument in court, then you need to bring the solid proof. Now, what Carrie Lake's team did do was bring a lot of fishy business to the forefront. And if anything, seeing what Carrie Lake's team presented, if anything, Maricopa County should be able to do a new election. They should just scrap that one and everyone go vote again, because there were so many issues. There were obviously issues. I don't think that Carrie Lake's team in those 2 days brought enough evidence to the forefront to prove that this person premeditated to screw things up and this is how they did it and here's the evidence of it. Like, I didn't see that hard evidence of here's the suspect, here's how they committed, a scam on the voters. We did see a lot of fishy business, and this man, Mr. Scott Jarrett, is just one of the really sketchy situations that we're looking at here. But again, if Carrie Lake's team wanted to win this case, and they're saying that there were 6 locations with shrink to fit issues, show the cold hard evidence of the shrink to fit at 6 locations to prove that Mr. Jarrett is lying and perjuring. Why didn't they show the cold hard proof? So that's just what I'm saying. As someone who is a friend and fan of Carrie Lake, I was disappointed in her legal team for not bringing more evidence into court. Checking your comments. Thank you so much for tuning into this little live stream. We're going to get back to hitting it hard, hitting the ground running for the new year. I know I took a lot of time off for the holidays. How were your holidays? I was up in Wisconsin in sub-zero weather every single day, enjoying some family time. It was very nice. And now I'm still trying to figure out what to do for New Year's. But I'm back in Texas now, where it is much warmer. It was up to like 80 this past day. Okay, so yeah, so Carrie Lake is appealing it. I'm looking at she's taking it to the what is it? She is taking it to the higher court, the state court of appeals, and she is going to ask the court to waive her $33,000 legal fee and to consider all 10 counts again to get the bottom of what the heck happened. Okay. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in, and have a great New Year. We don't have truth bombs tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll have a show or not, but we're going to get back to normal in the new year. So stick with me. Thanks for your support. See you next time.